Hello, welcome. Welcome to Dr. Jeff Talks About Sex and Intimacy. I'm Dr. Jeff Albaugh, and this podcast is dedicated to providing accurate, compassionate information. And all of it's about sex, intimacy, and relationships so we can replace confusion and shame, which so often comes into play, with knowledge and with connection. Today, you're joining us for episode 55. That means there's 54 episodes in there already. This one's on embracing sexuality, separating myths from truths with Dr. Stephanie Buehler. Whether you're watching live or listening to the recording, I really want to take a moment to sincerely thank you for being here. I truly appreciate every single one of you. Your engagement, your curiosity, and your willingness to learn are what makes this podcast possible every week. So thank you. We're connected across so many platforms. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, we're on LinkedIn, we're on X. Lots of people following us on X these days. And if you're on X and you want to submit a question, hop over to YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, or StreamYard so you can interact with us directly, because I know you can't always do that on X, but we're so glad you're here. Whatever platform that you're on, definitely. And a quick favor, if you are a Facebook person, follow us. The more people who follow us, the more we can do. But go to the website. Wow, the website has, after tonight, we will have 55 different videos in there that you can watch. You can watch each and every one of those amazing experts that have shared their expertise with you. You can pick your subjects and decide what you want to do. Pull up the calendar and see all the awesome people we have coming. We're booked out all the way through May with really wonderful, talented people who want to share their expertise, their knowledge, and scientific-based information with you. So it's pretty exciting. Go to the website. And so also, you can take us with you. We are on your favorite streaming device. So if you're working out, if you are going on the road, take Dr. Jeff Talks About Sex with you. You can learn more while you're rolling along. We're there right with you. We are on Spotify. We are on Amazon Music. We are on iHeartRadio and more. So please take us with you. We love to go on road trips. We love to work out with you. I'd like to remind you all, as I always do with this podcast, that all are welcome here. You are so welcome in this space. Whatever your sexual orientation, whatever your gender identity or your relationship style, thank you for being here, and thank you for the miraculous being of who you are. You are so welcome here. What's the mission of the podcast? I always remind people, why do we do this? We do this to empower and enlighten you with the evidence-based, that's the scientific-based information that will improve your sexual health, that will deepen your loving relationships so you can live your one miraculous, wholehearted life with more love. Who doesn't want more love in their life? And that's what the podcast is all about. Today, this is going to be a great episode. We're talking about an important, but this is often an overdue conversation about sexuality, about myths, and about the messages many of us have carried for years without questioning them. From cultural expectations and shame to misinformation, so often misinformation about desire, about aging, about our bodies, which are complex and fabulous, and about our relationships. Sexual myths can quietly shape how we see ourselves and how we connect with others. I am so honored to be joined by my friend and colleague, Dr. Stephanie Buehler. She is a leading voice in sex therapy and sexual health education. Dr. Stephanie Buehler is a licensed psychologist. She is AASECT certified sex therapist and a supervisor for AASECT as well. She's an internationally respected educator in sexual health. She's the founder of the Buehler Institute, where she provides training, much of which I've done myself, that wonderful training and consultation for mental health and medical professionals, and especially those of us who do sex therapy and sex counseling, seeking to offer inclusive, ethical, and evidence-based sex therapy. Dr. Buehler is the author of several influential wonderful books, including What Every Mental Health Professional Needs to Know About Sex, great book, and Counseling Couples Before, During, and After Pregnancy. She is widely known for her ability to translate complex sexual health research into practical, compassionate guidance that reduces shame and empowers both clinicians and clients alike. I couldn't be more happy to welcome you here tonight, Dr. Stephanie Buehler. Welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you. I just love listening to your whole introduction. From telling people how glad you are, grateful you are, and making sure that everybody feels welcome here. I
Mhm.
just loved hearing that. So I'm very honored to be here with you, and very pleased to help your audience understand, hopefully a little bit more, get a little more insight into what sexuality and intimacy are or can be all about. It can be so many different things. It's very
Mhm.
complex. I mean, it's so complex. Uh, Area of our lives, surrounded, as you said, by shame and embarrassment, guilt, when it really should be liberating and fun and
Yes.
pleasurable and
Mm.
all that good juicy stuff that it's meant to be to bring us joy. So,
I couldn't agree with you more, and I can't wait to hear what you have to say. So I'm going to turn it over to you for a bit so you can do your presentation and share your expertise, and then I'll be back to talk more.
okay, sounds good. Okay, hello everybody. I'm really excited to be here and to talk about this topic. And I have a little like sheet that I'm going to be glancing at to help stimulate my thinking. I'm really going to be talking off the cuff, but about sexuality and intimacy. And I think because of the audience, I'm going to do some focus on chronic illness and cancer. No, I'm sorry, not really going to focus on that so much per se, but just what happens when our bodies are affected by a chronic illness, which could be cancer, or could be any number of things. And, this should be applicable also to people as they age or they're in different stages of life. So hopefully, um, some of this will resonate for you. So let's just start with the idea that sex is supposed to be natural. Whatever does that mean? What does that mean? I mean, like what in our lives is natural and effortless? I guess maybe taking a sip of water, or just mm, like looking up at the sky and seeing the sun. Those things are natural. But I think that um, because human life is very complex and we have a long lifespan, and there are changes happening along the way that we need to be making adjustments. And, this idea that we're just supposed to know what to do at any stage of our lives, I think it's really harmful. Because then when changes happen, people they become frustrated, they get upset, that creates conflict in their relationship. Like you should know what to do. Like you're the woman who just had a baby. You're the person who just was diagnosed with whatever fibromyalgia, say, or something like that. You should know what to do in these situations. Just figure it out. And really, it's not always that easy. I think that sometimes, our bodies are impacted, whether it's from aging or just stage of life, even what's going on with our sleep, our diet, the stress that we have. Our bodies are always changing, and we're always needing to kind of check in with our bodies, understand what's going on. I'm very somatic. I think, taking deep breaths and just, tuning into what is happening in your body, what it needs at any particular time. And that may change depending on what is happening in your life. So, chronic illness is a particular kind of stressor. And when we think about, the typical sexual script is that there are two able-bodied people, healthy in their prime, and they're having great, free sex, just free form. It's all very natural. And of course, we're also watching, if we're watching something like Bridgerton or something like that, they have coaches standing there and telling everybody, like, turn your head this way when you kiss, or move your body that way. And to us, we think, oh, look how natural and beautiful. But it's all very, it's choreographed. So we just internalize these ideas about what natural sex looks like. We don't really have an opportunity to very often hear what people say about changes in their body. Now, I happen to be the wife of a prostate cancer survivor, so I know firsthand, very much so, all of the changes that can happen when somebody is diagnosed and treated for an illness. And all kinds of things can happen. Desire can decrease, sexual function, the ability to have an erection or a spontaneous erection, orgasms and pleasurable feelings, nerves can be affected, body parts can be affected, your sensation can change, and all of that. And so, it can be, it definitely can be challenging, but if you kind of like get a little education about your particular illness, consult with your medical team, hopefully. Maybe you'll need to talk to a sex therapist at some point. That's a possibility. But you can still have a sex life.
Mhm.
So it may not feel natural because it doesn't look like the scripted thing that you once did, or you're not following what you used to do, and it may feel awkward or weird or kind of distressing. I get that. But with good communication, with planning, figuring out maybe what you need to have on the bedside, a really good lubricant, or maybe you need to have extra towels for cleanup or something like that. You have those things going. You talk about how maybe things need to go slower. Maybe there's been a change in your body, and you're not sure how you want to be touched. That can happen too with things like menopause, or as men age, sometimes they need more stimulation to have an erection. So all of those things are adaptations, and you have to have flexibility. A little bit of humor doesn't hurt. And having open communication, and um, putting putting the stress where it really belongs, which is on the change created by the life stage or the illness or whatever is going on. That's the stress. What you want to do is see each other as a source of comfort, as a source of intimacy, through loving touch, through words, through doing things for one another. Oh, that's those love languages, which I don't subscribe to those very strictly at all. But like when sex, whatever that means to you, has changed, sometimes other aspects of sex come to the forefront, and that is like having maybe more affection, or just taking more time to touch each other's bodies, or really verbalizing your feelings for your partner and what it is that you love about them, or or maybe it's verbalizing, hey, you know what? I know you love me, and I know that you want us to be together in this way, but things have changed for me. And I know as my loving partner that I can be open with you about what I need. So that right there, hopefully that helps you, and just get away from that idea of what sex is supposed to look like and realize that it can look like many different things for people. Um, and so I'd like to go on to another myth, which is that if we loved each other, we'd want sex the same amount. Well, that's kind of silly. The analogy that I like to use is food. Like my husband likes Mexican food more than I do. He likes to go get his tacos and his enchiladas and his margarita and whatever. And I'm more like fajitas, like a few um, grilled things on like a flour tortilla. That's my jam. And what I really like, I like Asian food. So, just because we don't want it the same amount doesn't mean anything about how we feel about each other. It means nothing. So, wanting sex at different times or different frequencies or even different kinds of sex really doesn't say anything about love. It's really just more about what's going on in our bodies, um, just our personalities, our attachment style, how frequently we need to feel a physical connection with somebody, and many other things. And you're two different people, so get off this idea. Don't pressure your partner. "Well, you have to have sex with me." Because I need to be validated by you. Sex is not always it's nice when you're validated sexually by your partner. They find you very attractive. They show you that they think you're hot, whatever. All those things are good, but you have to have other ways to get validation outside the bedroom, even outside of your relationship, that tell you you're okay. And you have to have something internal that says, you know what, I'm okay with, and that's hard. I'm going to tell you, the prostate cancer, big changes in desire. I mean, my husband was always a very high desire partner, and that has changed a lot. And then there's aging as a factor as well. And, I had to know that I was still desirable, I was still attractive, I was still a worthwhile person, I was lovable. It really doesn't have that much to do with desire. Excuse me. Allergies, sorry. They're kind of acting up at the moment. Um, what else? So, what about this one? If my body isn't reliable, intimacy isn't possible. Well, that's just not true. Bodies, people have things happen to their bodies. They have surgeries. They have like things like ostomy bags. They have casts put on. They have back and neck problems. All kinds of things can be going on. And it doesn't mean that sex has to stop. What may need to change is how you are being physically intimate with each other. And that actually can make things more intimate when you open up and you say, you know what? I know that we often like to do things this way. We like to get undressed this way, and then you initiate, and then I respond, and then I initiate for a while, and then you respond, and then maybe we're going to have some kind of intercourse or whatever, some activity that we know gets us off and leads us to having an orgasm, a climax. When you get away from orgasm-focused sexual activity, super interesting things can happen. You can become so incredibly intimate with your partner just by looking in each other's eyes and talking about how much you care about one another. Just lying together, whether fully clothed or naked or whatever, just lying together on a bed and really holding each other close, really close. Or saying, you know what, I know that right now intercourse is impossible for those couples that engage in that. And, but we can do other things. We can have oral sex, we can have manual sex, we can have asymmetric pleasure. Maybe I'm going to help you experience an orgasm and the way that you can for now. And then I'm going to have an orgasm, or maybe I'm not going to. Maybe I'm just going to have pleasure in watching you have your orgasm. So, there are different kinds of experiences that are available to you. You might even find that you have an orgasm just by being intimate and being close with each other. Orgasms come in different flavors, and people don't know that, but there's that kind of uh, our typical kind of flavor of, that real build up to excitement. And then like you have that phase where your muscles are tensing up and releasing, and, you get tingles, or your breathing is heavier, um, you're panting or whatever. Very exciting. But some people experience orgasms as waves of pleasure, which can be very interesting to explore if you just let yourself relax enough and feel close enough and have that trust. You may have waves of orgasm. That's something to look forward to. What about the possibility that sex doesn't always have to end with an orgasm? I've had, for example, men with delayed ejaculation, or women who sometimes just is taking a long time to have an orgasm. And it's like, you know what? I'm satisfied. We were close and we had this experience, and I loved it, and I love you, and that's fine. That's enough. So, just giving you some different ways to think about intimacy and sexuality. Um, I think also, here's another one that I just thought of recently, but it's the idea that talking about sex ruins it. Like somehow it's weird. It is totally weird to me. How many people have sex and they, be in my office and they go like, you know what, it's kind of weird, isn't it? I mean, we have sex, but we never talk to each other
Mhm.
about it. We've never had a conversation. And yeah, it's kind of weird, isn't it? So, it doesn't ruin it. Um, for it has the great power to make things a lot better. To say, you know what, let me show you how I want to be touched. Let me tell you what is a turn on for me. Let me also share with you what's a turn off. Now, it's a turn on for me when you go slow, or it's a turn on for me when you get kind of grabby, or it's a turn on to me when you're on top of me. That's the biggest turn on. I've never told you that. I know I've had people say, they tell me privately, oh, what I really want from my partner is oral sex. And they haven't told that to their partner yet. And sometimes when they finally do tell their partner, and with me there in the room facilitating this conversation, the partner very often says, is that all? Is that what you want? Oh, I didn't know that. We never said anything. I just assumed maybe it wasn't something that interested you. So, communication can really help. Other things are just letting each other know what your appetite is for sex at a particular point in time. If you know that you're going to have the week from, let's just say it, the week from hell, and you look at your calendar and you go like, you know what? I just, my calendar is too full. I apologize. Partly I'll take some responsibility. I didn't have good boundaries, and now I have this week, and I am very sorry for you. For you, I'm sorry for you. I feel sorry for you. But I feel sorry for me too, because this horrible week. So, but you can communicate that and say, hey, but let's make sure that we connect. I mean, really connect on Friday or Sunday morning and really make time for each other and put it on the calendar and make it sort of sacred time. Some couples really find it beneficial to have a set time in the week. Some people think that's like the most boring thing ever. But many people, if they know that, Saturday night is our night, then, they have a lot of anticipation about it and they get excited about it. And they're like, they know that it's going to happen and they don't have to worry, and so that can be something you can communicate. There's also something else. This show is supposed to be evidence-based. I'm not bringing in a lot of research, but somebody did a study and found that couples who had sex once a week were the happiest. Having sex more than once a week didn't make you any happier, didn't bring you any additional satisfaction. Having sex less than once a week was uh, was associated with being less sexually satisfied, less satisfied for your relationship. So, the takeaway message was, try to have sex about once a week. If you're struggling, when you're having sex like 2 to 3 times a month, hey, you're actually pretty good. But is there a way to have sex an additional time every month? Can you get a sitter another time? Can you make time some unusual way? Both come home for lunch, something like that, every once in a while. So, to look for opportunities, I think that can be really helpful. Um, the other thing too, this is kind of interesting, that the idea is if the sex is good, the relationship is good. Well, I can tell you that people in my office, usually by themselves, they're on their own, they come in on their own, and they will say, my relationship is horrible, but the sex is amazing. And like I can't leave my relationship, even though it's terrible, because the sex is so good. So sex being good, satisfying, not so satisfying, that doesn't always say so much about the relationship. You can have a good relationship. That's really the point. You can have a good relationship, but your sex life maybe is not working so well. And this is a problem. This has been a problem that I've talked about for a very long time. A lot of couples therapists think that if they help with communication, they have a couple that says, we don't have sex very often. Oh, well, we'll help you communicate more. That is going to somehow make your sex life better. That's not necessarily true. You can start having great communication, and I can tell you, a lot of couples came in saying, we are thankful to our last therapist because they helped us to communicate, but our sex life still isn't what we want it to be. So, like asking them, what is their vision? What is your vision for your sex life? What is it that would make it satisfying for you? And, as often as frequency or changing things up, introducing some novelty, whether that's with toys or, maybe even a different room of the house or, some, I had one couple that just loved going to the same restaurant every single week. They had their booth that they'd like to sit at. They would have their wine. They would sit and they would talk. Some people, that's like boring. That like death warmed over. So, talk about that. Like, let's try every Chinese restaurant in a 20-mile radius from our house and just go from restaurant to restaurant. You'd be surprised. The other thing too that can make sex good that you don't think about is having your own life. Because, having a little separation is good too. And I know, that's the other thing that happened this last year. My husband made a decision to retire, and he was going to be working part time for a while. And he said, nope, I'm
Mhm.
done. And so, like if we're both in the house, I work at home, so we're both in the house now together all the time. And we're like, no, you know what? We need to have reasons to get out of the house. We
Mm.
need to separate from each other and see each other as separate individuals. It makes things more interesting, more exciting. He now has a few things that he goes off and does, and I know that he's happy on his own. He's doing things that interest him. He's going to come back and tell me about them. I have my own things that I'm doing. We're in a new city, so we're still trying to make friends, but like establishing friendships with other people can be good. So that actually can help brighten up the intimacy that you have and make you more interesting to one another. Um, let's see. Here's a good one. My partner should just know what I need. How is that? How does that work? How, I mean, that was really, I have to, when I started really doing a lot of couples work, I was stunned, really stunned by how many people thought that their partner should be able to read their mind. And they would say aloud, like, they should just know what I want. How?
Mhm.
Like they're supposed to know you so well that they live inside your head and they can tell by just your facial expression, the way your eyes are sparkling or something like that. I just I just don't understand that. So we do have to communicate. Uh, we have to get in touch with ourselves first, right? Sometimes saying my partner should know what I want is kind of giving up responsibility for your own sexual pleasure. And saying, well, you figure it out and then we'll see if it works for me. And that's really that's asking your partner to take a lot of risk. They're going to try things and you're going to go like, that wasn't it. What's wrong with you? Why didn't you know what I wanted? Well, you didn't tell them. You have to identify what it is that you enjoy. And if you don't know what that is, you can use fantasy. You can take, some time in the shower, in the bath or something like that, in the car, if you're driving safely on a stretch of highway or something like that, and you have a moment to fantasize. What comes up? What seems juicy and fun and sexy and erotic to you? You can read romances. You can watch. You can watch sexually explicit material, but I don't know that you're going. You can learn things. You definitely can learn things from watching sexually explicit material, but that's objectionable for some people. And you can still get ideas from watching kind of more mainstream um, shows that have couples in them and get an idea. There are a multitude of books that you can purchase, and these days they don't even have to be sitting out on your nightstand. That you can find a multitude of books. There are lists online where you can download a list that lists different kinds of sexual activities, and you say, yes, this is something I want to try. No, this is something that's off the table for me, or this is intriguing, but I'm not sure. So, we'll try it. But if it isn't a turn on for me, and I let you know, then we need to stop. So there are lots of ways to get in touch with what you want. And once you do that, to communicate it to your partner. Now, your partner also has their own template, their own menu, and you can ask for something, and that's true, that they may say, that I don't, that's not for me. That's not something I want to try. And yeah, it is. I think that's the other thing why people avoid communicating what they want because they are afraid. Like I said, I had people that said, I want oral sex. They're afraid that their partner is going to think that they're peculiar, perverse for wanting what they want. And there are all kinds of things that people want. There's a whole world of things that people want. But that doesn't mean that your partner is necessarily going to get on board with you. So you can say, is this something that you're willing to try? Could we try it once or twice and see if it can be a turn on for you too, or if it's something that we can do every so often because it's something that turns me on. And your partner has to check in with themselves, and everybody is allowed to say no. I think that's a big thing that we've learned as sex therapists and educators, that consent to have sex is an ongoing process. We can't make our partners do something because we want that, and they have to prove to us that they love us. But the consent, partners need to give consent to do something that is new, or even something that has been okay. Maybe now it isn't. So that consent piece is ongoing. And between committed partners and married partners, you have to have consent in those committed relationships as well. So sex, it is complex, and you can hear maybe that's the big thing that you can take away, is that communication is key. And whether you are well and you are able-bodied, or you have some compromise in terms of your physical body, or maybe something, you have like an extra stress going on in your life and so on, that you have to be in touch with your own sexuality. You have to understand that intimacy is more than just, Masters and Johnson very famously says, sex is more than body parts and friction. There's a lot more to sex, and so much more to intimacy. And intimacy comes from sharing with a partner what it is that you want or need at any particular moment of time. So I think, I think maybe that on that note, maybe stop and see if there are some questions.
Wow, so many great things to unpack. I like to you bring up so many valid points that we see all the time with our patients. And so a couple things that came out for me was I always try to work with my clients to tell them everybody's responsible for their own orgasm. It's not about performance. It's about you are responsible for what you want and what you need today. And I love how you talked about how can somebody read your mind? And remember, you're entitled to change your mind, right?
Yes.
So maybe today you want to go painstakingly slow with your intimacy, and maybe sometimes you want it very quick, or you want so we can't even assume that we want it the same way. But like, I've been married for 40 years, and
Oh, I have too.
oh wow, congratulations. In April
Yeah,
we're going to be
yeah,
40.
congrats.
That's so cool. So but you think, oh, we know what works. If I touch you here and I do this, I know you like this, but maybe today that's not exactly so what I want. We're all responsible for our own pleasure and orgasms. So I think working together really is so important. And I like how you bring out that importance of, you can't read their mind. You can't know what somebody wants in this moment right now. You got to work together on it. And that's the fun of it, right?
Right. I know, communication is tricky though. I get it.
And I think too, I love how you talked about the communication, and so I think sometimes it's not in the throngs of it that you want to start being directive or talk about things, but somewhere maybe outside the bedroom, you want to have a conversation about, I love when you do this. What about this? Have you thought about that? Or let's talk about our fantasies. Some of that can be done in the bedroom, but some of it may be disruptive to what you're doing. So I think timing and placement can be a little tricky. But if you don't start communicating, it doesn't get any easier.
Right. I
I
think,
think it's
what
harder.
I used, and, this can be helpful for anybody. who's listening is to just very simple. I think this came from Barry McCarthy,
Mm,
who was so instrumental in our field. But to just say like red light, green light, yellow
mhm,
light, and have that idea before you uh, get into bed together, that if we're going to, especially if we're going to try something new, that, like yellow light is, slow down on this. I'm not sure I'm enjoying it. And red light, it doesn't have to be like red light. Just like red light means stop. I'm getting overwhelmed, or this isn't feeling good to me. And not in anger though. That's just
mm,
like, it's just like red light. You can have your own system, you can have
mhm,
your own words, but just pause, take a
mhm.
breath, see if we're done, see if we
Or
want to go
not.
back or
Right.
not. Maybe if we take a breath and kind of regroup.
Yeah, we Barry was on the show in last year, and just he's just a wealth of knowledge. We've both
Oh
learned much from
gosh.
him over the years, and he was talking a lot about desire and responsive desire. I think there's another myth where people think desire's just always there. You got this drive. But for many people, it's more responsive. It's not necessarily just always, especially with aging and changes in hormone levels and stuff for both men and women, it can become more responsive. So he was on talking about some of that. Great episode. But yeah, I think that's true. And even the consent, it's sort of that. I think we've talked multiple times on the podcast, and it's so important that it's an ongoing thing as you're moving through things. So I like that you brought that up too. But I think communication is such a big deal, and often our vocabulary is very limited around sex and intimacy. We don't know how to talk about it, but the more you talk about it, the easier it gets to talk about it. And just like what you said with your husband, and something goes wrong in all of our lives that affects sex and intimacy, right? Medical
Yeah.
things happen
Yeah.
to all of us. And then you got to talk about it, right?
You gotta talk about it. You gotta talk about it. Even if you've had a great sex life, you're gonna have to talk about it.
And what doesn't
Things
change as we
change.
age? I mean, everything changes. It's like
Everything
you
changes.
having a sense of humor about it can be really great too. My wife and I will laugh. We'll be like, okay, there's all kinds of crazy noises as your body gets older that it's just like, but it's fun, it's exciting, and you develop new ways of being intimate. So I was thinking also how you were talking about myths, and I was thinking two things. I was really thinking is I think the worst myths are the ones we tell ourselves, that we believe about
Oh,
our bodies and ourselves, and
yeah.
right about like
Yeah.
how I, I see so many men in my clinic. I see women as well, but I hardly ever meet a man in my clinic. I examine them. We go through everything because it's a sexual dysfunction clinic, and we're working on often erectile dysfunction and problems. And I don't know that I've met hardly any men, even men who are very well endowed, who believe that they are adequate in terms of their size.
Oh, yes.
One of my friend's daughters was like, I hate my labia. It's like, and so I think so often our perceptions and the myths and the lies we tell ourselves about our amazing bodies are the most difficult myths. So I think that it's really important, like you said, to go into some self-discovery of what you want, what you think, and also I think because I examine people all the time, men and women, and genital exam is much a part of it. People think that, and often what you see in movies, remember, movies are made up. You see the best of whatever's out there. You see the best penis they could possibly find, and they've injected it to help keep it hard for the duration that you're seeing in the movie. It is not real, people. It's not real. So I think what a lot of people struggle with sometimes with some of that sort of visual stimulation porn, especially some porn, is being compared to some of that. When who's to say what a beautiful labia looks like, or who's when you look at studies, there's the science-based information. Size is not a major factor in pleasure. It's just not, because there's nothing way up in the vagina or necessarily way up in the rectum past the prostate. If you're a male on male, there's nothing up there that it's going to necessarily make it feel better. You still may like that, and there's nothing wrong with that. But in general, the things that have to be the erotic zones on the body can be reached without, that more than average size penis, or that whatever. So
Yeah.
I think those myths we tell ourselves are really
Yeah.
important to unpack and look at.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
And then too, like, then I know after most of my patients, I wrote a book for men with prostate cancer on
Yes.
reclaiming sex and intimacy. And so many of them struggle with, and their partners too, they're like, I don't think he's excited by me anymore because he doesn't get erections. It's like the penis is no longer a reliable barometer of his excitement.
Yes.
It's a
Yes. Oh my
mechanical
God.
failure. It has
It's the
nothing to
worst
do with it.
barometer.
And so I tell them, let's make a pact and work on that. You're going to have an amazing sexual experience, and if you're hard enough, you could have penetrative sex and do things that you can do with a harder penis. And if you're not hard enough, you can do anything and everything else that you could both enjoy to get to orgasm pleasure,
Right.
or wherever you want to do it.
Right. And, if you're the partner and you're looking, you're looking at your partner and going, where's your erection? Your erection is how I know that you love me and want me and find me desirable. Well, I need to start looking for other evidence. Like, are
Mhm.
they looking at you with love? Did they bring you your coffee in the morning? Did they
Mhm.
help? Did they take you to your favorite place for dinner?
Yes, love can be spoken in so many ways. And then too, like you said, believe what they tell you. Too, my prostate cancer patients would tell me, she says it's all okay and she doesn't care, and she says penetrative sex not that comfortable for her, but I think she's just being nice. And I've had women say, I'm not being nice. That has nothing to do with this. I'm telling you the truth. But it's so hard for us to believe we're enough. It's so hard for us to believe we're worthy of love and belonging. And I tell them, your penis and your hardness doesn't define or remotely say who you really
Yes.
are,
Right.
Same thing with my
Right.
women who are like, nothing goes in there anymore. It hurts. It's really uncomfortable for me. We can have wonderful ways of pleasuring each other, but um it, my one friend said that garage is closed. The vagina is closed down. That
Gosh,
factory
it's
is closed
close.
down. So
Yes.
things happen, but it doesn't mean that sex, pleasure, connection, and intimacy are still incredibly possible in all those circumstances. In all those circumstances, right?
Absolutely.
So we had a couple questions. The first, I thought they were both these are really good. The first one is, I grew up with a lot of rules and unspoken messages about sex. How can I tell which beliefs are actually true and which ones are myths that are holding me back?
Ooh, that's a really good question. That is a really good question. Well, I guess what comes to me, first of all, get information. Get
Mhm.
information. If you find yourself thinking, for in your example, like I can't make my partner happy unless my penis is so big, or I can't make my partner happy unless I can have penetrative sex. Well, is that true? Just like, can I? I mean, get some information, or just ask yourself, is it possible? Can people have satisfying sex when one of them is unable to have penetration? Whatever type of penetration that may be, oral, anal, vaginal. And, well, yeah, people can have all kinds of pleasure without having penetration. So, getting information, educating yourself, asking somebody knowledgeable, asking your doctor, asking your therapist, finding a nurse. Nurses are often the most wonderful sources of information, because that's such a part of their training, is to educate people. So, there are wonderful books like your book, or, a multitude of books
Mhm.
about sex, and you can start to educate yourself. The other thing too is, I would say, if you find yourself inhibited about something, like try, actually, this is for anything. Try to notice what your thoughts are, because our thoughts happen so quickly. They
Mm,
happen in like nanoseconds, and they can be really hard to tune in. What am I actually thinking about sex?
mm,
And, once you start, I would have people, on their phone, have like a little note on their phone. Like, notice when you have a thought about sex, write it down. Write it down. And then it's there in black and white. And maybe it's not such a black and white thought.
mhm,
But it's there, and you can look at it, and you can kind of ask yourself different questions. Is this true? Or what am I afraid will happen as a result? Like the idea, like, I have to have a hard erection in order to have good sex.
mm,
Is that true?
mhm,
Can I have sex without an erection?
mm.
Yeah, I can. Can I make my partner satisfied without an erection? Yes, I can.
Yeah, I think you hit on a point that I was thinking as well with that question is it's learning to I work a lot with my patients on learning to challenge negative thinking. Remember that voice in your head, listener, is a culmination of past trauma and negativity. Boy, if you talk to anybody like that voice talks to you, you'd call that abusive. So I think
Oh,
challenging that negative thinking.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we get all these internalized messages from our family, sometimes religion, from peers. A font of misinformation is what I like to say about peers. And so, um, yeah, we just have to challenge our thinking.
And there's so many great books written on that as well, on challenging negative thinking, just really kind of looking at what are the negative thoughts. Like you said, are they true? Is it really true? And in the end, most of the time it's not. And then kind of resetting that thinking a little bit. And then looking at probably, the body kind of keeps the score on that. So it's probably living somewhere in your body and doing some embodiment and breath work to release it and let go of some of those negative thoughts. Because sometimes when we release them here, we haven't released them down here or
Right,
wherever.
right. That's right.
So,
That's so true.
that somatic embodiment work is so important too. So, another great question that was submitted. I feel shame, even though nothing's wrong medically, but just because of body changes after menopause. Where does sexual shame come from, and what are some realistic first steps to begin letting
Oh,
go of shame?
wow, that is such a great question. I think the shame can be coming from so many different places. It can come from, I'm no longer able to supply my partner with what I once was easily able to supply them with. I don't have spontaneous desire anymore, or it takes longer for me to have an orgasm, or whatever might be going on, and feeling defective somehow. I mean, people do somehow. Sometimes, you don't have desire, and you feel defective, and you feel like there's something wrong with you that has to be fixed. And maybe there's nothing wrong. Sometimes we have to work on acceptance, which can be that can entail a lot of work. Like you said, it can be somatic work, like checking in with your body, what's happening in your body, what do you need to release. It can be just working with your thoughts, saying, where is that thought coming from? I'm defective. Is that true? Am I, is all of my worth caught up with my appearance as I age, or how much I lubricate? That's a big one. Women feel a
Hmm.
lot of shame when they uh, don't produce natural lubrication like they did when they were younger, and they have to use a lubricant. That women can feel ashamed by that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a natural change. So really being gentle with yourself about these changes and acknowledging them and saying, yeah, it's true. I don't lubricate the same now as I did when I was 20 or 30 or 40. And that's where it is.
Mm-hmm.
That's where acceptance comes in. And I
Mm-hmm.
think, accepting your body as it is currently can really help to diminish some of that shame that you're feeling.
I think that's absolutely true. And I think that often, I try to, even when we're working in couples therapy, I'm sure you find this as well. I'm like, let's work on conflict management rather than shame and blame. Let's get past it. And especially when it comes to sexual dysfunction, because nobody said, sign me up for prostate cancer and then treatments that cause erectile dysfunction. Nobody said, I want to be on medicines for my breast cancer treatment, which caused me to have vaginal dryness and atrophy and pain and symptoms of genital urinary symptoms of menopause. So it's like, it's no one's fault. Even
Right.
this, and even more so with things,
Yes.
traumatic things that hold you back or psychological things, they're still not your fault. You didn't cause these things. Release the shame and blame on each other and on yourselves.
Yeah.
Leaves
Yeah.
a lot of room for love in that relationship when you
It
release.
does. Self-love. Self-love.
It all begins there,
Yeah.
doesn't it?
It does. It really does. To like love yourself, love who you are, know that you're okay.
Definitely. I think that is the perfect lead into our centering exercise, which I'm going to do now. And then we will tell them what's coming up next week and come back to you in just a minute. So let's do what we do in this podcast. And what we do is we get into a really comfortable position, listeners. We're going to let go of those myths that hold us back. So, as we close today's episode, I'd like to invite you into a brief centering exercise to bring you back into your body, to take a moment to sit comfortably. Can you get comfortable there? Put your feet flat on the floor if you want to lay down, whatever's comfortable. Get yourself in a comfortable position. Allow your breath to slow, inhaling gently through your nose and exhaling fully through your mouth. Continue that pattern in through your nose, out through your mouth. Breathing is so incredibly powerful and soothing. Now, bring to mind one belief about sexuality that you carried for a long time. A should, a should, or a rule, or a story that no longer feels supportive or true to you, that no longer serves you. Maybe it's something about your body. Maybe it's something about sexual acts or use of toys or play, or what is that thing that you've carried that no longer serves you? That rule or should or story that no longer feels supportive. Without judgment, simply notice it. Thank it for the role that it played, the role that it did in your life, maybe to protect you, maybe to guide you, maybe it never served you, but if it did, thank it for that. Maybe it served a purpose, maybe it came up for a reason, but it's not serving a purpose any longer. As you inhale, imagine creating space for curiosity and for compassion. Curiosity and compassion, breathe it in. And as you exhale, imagine releasing that old belief, that old story that's not serving you anymore. Inhale, and as you exhale, Let it soften, let it loosen, let it drift away like a cloud drifting by, that negative belief. Creating space. Now, gently replace it with a more truthful, kinder message. My sexuality is personal, evolving, and worthy of respect. My sexuality is personal, evolving, and worthy of respect. I am allowed to learn, change, and embrace pleasure and connection on my own terms in a way that feels comfortable for me. I am allowed to learn, change, and embrace pleasure and connection, so important, on my own terms in a way that feels comfortable for me. I am worthy of pleasure and of love and belonging. You are so worthy of pleasure and love and belonging. Know that. Let that live inside of you. I am worthy of pleasure and love and belonging. Take one more slow breath in your nose and a long exhale out. Let it go, let it go. Carry this openness with you as you move forward. And remember, you deserve accurate information. You deserve self-compassion and self-love and fulfilling intimacy at every stage of your life, including this one, wherever you're at in this journey. Well, Vic, can you tell us a little bit about what's up next week with Dr. Jeff Talks About Sex and Intimacy?
Mindfulness isn't just meditation. It's a way of relating that can completely shift the emotional landscape of a relationship. In this episode, Dr. Jeff is joined by Yunzi Ariel Zeng, a couples therapist and relationship researcher specializing in mindfulness relational well-being. She explores how mindful awareness helps couples move out of autopilot, interrupt reactive cycles, and build deeper, more compassionate connection. Ariel presents the research behind mindfulness in relationship and shares practical, accessible mindfulness tools. She discusses how partners can use to slow down, communicate with intention, hold space for each other, and reconnect with their emotional and erotic selves. Join us on January 27th at 7 p.m. Central Time to learn more.
Awesome. I love that. That's going to be a great episode. Mindfulness is such a big deal. There are scientists out there who believe we live one of two ways in a moment. You either being mindless or you're being mindful. So next week, we're really going to focus on being more mindful, living every moment to the fullest. This has been a great episode, and I thank my wonderful guest, Dr. Stephanie Buehler. She's got an incredibly busy schedule in life, and I really appreciate that she took time out of that to talk to us about all those crazy myths and all those untruths that might be holding you back. Maybe we didn't get to them all, but we will. And we've dispelled a lot of them on this podcast over this past year. So look back and see some of the previous episodes. But I just want to leave you with this final thought. What myths are you telling yourself? What negative thoughts are holding you back? And how can you release those negative thoughts if they're really not serving you or working in your life? My hope and prayer for you is that you become exactly what you want in terms of more love, more connection, more intimacy with those people that you care about around you, and that you have more of that in your life. Who doesn't want more of that? Thank you so much for joining us for this episode, and have a great one.
Dr. Jeff talks about sex